Hi, I'm Jacob with FCP Euro, and welcome to the Volvo P3 Buyer's Guide. Today we're going to explain the ins and outs of the Volvo P3 chassis lineup. The P3 is based on Ford's Euro Class D chassis, and if you own one of these cars, you may occasionally notice Ford Motor Company stamped on various sheet metal parts around the car. Even though the chassis will have shared components between non-Volvo cars like the Ford Mondeo and, interestingly, the Land Rover LR2, rest assured for you purists, the safety equipment, engines, drivetrains, and interior comforts are all Volvo. The Volvo P3 chassis is the successor to the very popular and well-known P2 chassis, which featured the quintessential S60 and V70 we're all familiar with. The P3 chassis cars ran from 2008 all the way up to 2018, and while they are great cars with a huge list of desirable tech and features, they didn't catch on the same way the P2 did. Perhaps the styling was a little too understated to match the price tag, or the lack of a manual transmission worked to persuade Volvo enthusiasts to shop around. Whatever the case may be, the Volvo P3 is a great choice for a used car, especially with the surprisingly solid and reliable T6 engine. Later models include high-end safety features such as adaptive xenon headlights, automatic city emergency braking for collision, blind spot information system, lane departure monitoring, and so forth. Those supplement the existing world-class safety cage and rollover protection suite that Volvo had been perfecting for decades. If you can get a good price on a Volvo P3, they are a great option for a used Euro. The platform is safe, and it's great in the snow in both all-wheel drive and front-wheel drive with the right tires. And they don't seem to be plagued with the many complicated issues like some of the older P2s. Our own J. Van Gordon describes the P3 chassis as ridiculously overbuilt. Our recommendation would be to try and go for a T6 if you can find one in your price range. For the entire P3 range, the cheapest one you'll probably find would be around $7,000 to $8,000 for a high mileage example, with the most expensive being, of course, the V60 and S60 Polestars, which hold their value pretty well being a limited production car. Those are going to be closer to $40,000 even with mileage on them. First, let's start with the S80 and take a look at the family tree. In 2007, a new generation S80 was introduced, followed shortly in 2008 with the third generation V70 and XC70. Visually, the evolution from the P2 chassis was obvious, featuring classy and understated European sedan lines, rounded features, and new LED lights would become the norm. The lineage can't be ignored, especially with the main curved body lines borrowed and updated from the outgoing P2s. All three of these models will share their basic layout and interior, with the S80 being the sedan, the V70 being the wagon, and of course the XC70 being the lifted cross-country wagon that is basically the staple of the trio. 2008 was a big year for Volvo because in addition to the two new models, a new engine was also introduced, the turbocharged 3-liter inline-six. The 3.0T was badged as a T6 and is a stout, single twin-scroll turbocharged up-trim version of the base model 3.2 that went into all three models. The bore was reduced from 84mm to 82mm, and the stroke was reduced from 96mm to 93.2. This allowed a drop in compression ratio, facilitating reliable forced induction to around 300 horsepower stock. Unfortunately for the wagon elitists out there, the P3 V70 never got the T6 engine in North America, and the car would ultimately be canceled entirely for our market shortly afterwards. Even though there was a V70R design, the differences were little more than some trim and badging. There is a silver lining. The new Yamaha-built V8 that the XC90 Sport got originally, which was a P2, not a P3, also went into the new S80 in 2008, making it the first and only Volvo sedan to get a V8 from the factory. As an added bonus, the V8 S80 also had all-wheel drive, making it a particularly special model if you're shopping for a P3. For you project seekers out there, we'd love to see someone swap a V8 into a V70R design, perhaps in due time. Like I mentioned before, the V70 would only spend 3 years in North America before being replaced entirely by the XC70, which would continue all the way until 2016 alongside the S80. In 2015, Volvo's new turbo 4-cylinder was introduced and went into both the S80 and the XC70 to round out the P3 generation. Interestingly enough, for the last year of production, the XC70 also got an RNC white block 5-cylinder turbo. Our guess is they had a few engines lying around and they needed something to put it in. If you know the real story as to why only the final XC70 got the old 5-cylinder, let us know in the comments below. The new S60 hit the streets in North America in 2011 with a streamlined body shape designed with fuel economy in mind. The S60 had a wagon twin, the V60. Most likely due to the recent deletion of the V70 due to poor statewide wagon sales, the V60 was withheld from our shores for a full 4 years while it sold overseas. Thankfully, we did eventually get the V60 in 2015. Both cars have a similar interior and share a majority of components. The S60 launched in T6 trim and all-wheel drive and soon added the more modest front-wheel drive 5-cylinder turbo the next year in 2012, as well as the T6 R-Design top trim level. In 2014, the S60 got a substantial facelift with redesigned LED lights and front fascia. In 2015, the new direct-injected 4-cylinder engine arrived to replace the 5-cylinder in T5 badged cars. That's when the V60 finally showed up, sporting the 4-cylinder in T5 trim, alongside the 3-liter turbo badged as the T6 R-Design. It's worth noting things got a little confusing for the 2015 and 2016 models, as you could get a T5 with the 5-cylinder or a T5 with the new 4-cylinder marked as Drive E. You could also get the T6 R-Design with the 3-liter turbo or the T6 Drive E with the 4-cylinder that was twin-charged. But again, we'll talk about engines later. That's not all that arrived in 2015, however. This was a big year for Volvo. The new relationship with Geely was in full swing, the future was bright, and it was time to do something special. Cue the Volvo S60 and V60 Polestar. With their distinctive bespoke Rebel Blue paint, huge 6-piston brakes, Olin suspension, and numerous other upgrades, the Polestar was probably the first P3 chassis to really catch people's attention. Polestar tuned up the twin-scroll turbocharged 3-liter 6 to 345 horsepower thanks to a larger turbo and intercooler, which was directed through a reprogrammed transmission and all-wheel drive system specifically calibrated to shift faster and send more power to the rear wheels. The S60 and V60 Polestar were one of the most performance-oriented Volvos ever made, with manually adjustable Öhlins dampers and those massive 6-piston Brembo brakes. It's reported that only around 1,500 Polestar models were produced globally, with 2015 and 2016 models carrying the 6-cylinder and 2017 and 2018 models with the new turbocharged and supercharged direct-injected 4-cylinder, that, despite making a bit more horsepower, the torquey straight 6 still felt a bit more punchy and definitely sounded better. One interesting thing is that only the launch 2015 year Polestar models were explicitly numbered. You'll have a little badge on the steering wheel telling what number you have out of 80 for that year. So if you want to feel extra special every time you glance at your steering wheel, try and spring for a 2015 Polestar. In 2016, Volvo expanded the lineup to add the cross-country versions of the V60 and, confusingly, also the S60. This is different than the XC60, which we'll explain in a bit. These two new models sported some extra trim around the wheel arches and a suspension lift, and got special tech goodies like adaptive cruise control and xenon lights. In our opinion, especially in the case of the rare S60 cross-country, these two models were an experiment to evaluate the market, but never meant to be serious production models. With stiff suspension, big wheels, and low-profile run-flat tires, the only country these two models were designed to cross had long, smooth roads. Also introduced in 2016 was the Inscription trim level for the S60, which is Volvo's code name for long wheelbase. The 3.1-inch chassis stretch was suggested by Chinese market research, and the extra rear legroom was appreciated enough to see good sales success. The Volvo S60L, or Inscription as they call it here, would be the first Chinese manufactured car to ever be sold in America. The S60 and V60 would end their run as P3 chassis models in 2018, where they were eventually replaced by a new chassis architecture for the 2019 model year. The final models would have all engine variants replaced with a 2-liter 4-cylinder, in preparation for mass deployment in the new SPA chassis. The same year the new S80 was released, a new production concept was unveiled. Volvo needed a capable crossover SUV to complement the XC90, which would retain its old P2 chassis all the way up to 2014. The XC70 didn't have that crossover look that American buyers had been gobbling up, so a new bespoke model was introduced, the XC60. With its tall roof, big tires, decent ground clearance, and extremely comfortable ride, the XC60 was a hit. The safety features and space were appealing to young families, and the higher seats were great for elderly drivers to help get in and out of. And it got the turbo T6 engine and Haldex all-wheel drive system at launch, making a convincing argument for Dad to compromise until he can get that classic in the barn running. The XC60 underwent a facelift in 2014 alongside the S60 and V60, doing away with the segmented headlights and restyled the LED lighting on the front fascia. Black plastic trim was replaced by body color, and the interior was updated to more closely match the S60 and V60. Also in 2014, an Ocean Race Special Edition trim level was introduced, potentially giving a nod to the P2 XC90 as it finished production. The P3 chassis has loads of different options available throughout the models and model years. Okay, now let's talk about the Volvo P3 engine options. So there were 6 basic engines available in Volvo P3 cars. 2 6-cylinders, a 5-cylinder, a V8, and 2 4-cylinders. First, we have the 3.2-liter naturally aspirated straight 6. This made between 230 and 240 horsepower. The 3.2 was actually first introduced in the P2 chassis with the XC90 in 2007, but was offered in the P3 chassis from 2008 up to 2015. You'll find the 3.2 in S80, V70, XC60, and XC70, but not in the S60 or V60. Next, we have our favorite engine, the 3-liter T6. This made between 280 and 350 plus horsepower in Polestar trim. This was offered in the S80, the XC70, the V60, the S60, and the XC60. Next, we have the final white block 5-cylinder turbo, the RNC. This made around 250 horsepower and was offered from 2011 to 2016. The final white block 5-cylinder was offered in the XC70, the S60, the V60, and the XC60. Wait, did I say the 3-liter turbo was our favorite? I'm sorry, I forgot about the 4.4-liter Yamaha V8 that was also introduced in the P2 chassis with the XC90. The 4.4-liter Yamaha designed V8 made 311 horsepower. Again, while it was introduced in the P2 chassis with the XC90, this engine was never put in a Volvo sedan until the P3 S80. Next, we have the 2-liter 4-cylinder, first introduced as the Drive E in 2015, and was available alongside the T5 5-cylinder and T6 6-cylinder in 2015 and 2016, until the 3-liter turbo and the 5-cylinder and the 3.2 was dropped for 2017 entirely, leaving only the Drive E 4-cylinder as the only engine option for all Volvo models after 2017. This 2-liter 4-cylinder direct-injected engine featured auto start-stop, some form of brake energy regeneration, and eco-drive modes. It also had an 8-speed automatic transmission versus the 6-speed auto found in the other engines. The T5 was turbocharged with around 240 horsepower, and T6 badge cars were turbocharged and supercharged with 302 horsepower or 360 in Polestar trim. Again, there were years where T5 cars overlapped with either the RNC 5-cylinder or the Drive E, along with T6 cars that overlapped with the 3-liter turbo and the Drive E twin-charged engine. So, in 2015 and 2016, you can have a T6 6-cylinder or a T6 Drive E 4-cylinder, as well as a T5 5-cylinder or a T5 Drive E 4-cylinder. So that about wraps up the engine section. As you can see, Volvo never makes it easy for us, but let's move on and learn more about the P3 chassis. We're going to just go over some of the different options and features that shipped on P3s in general, so you can look out for them when you're shopping for your ideal P3. The first thing we wanted to mention was that 2015 was a split year. Halfway through, all the cars received an update to the electronics package. Those cars will have the option for Sensus Connect subscription, which is Volvo's connectivity package. Sensus Connect can do a bunch of cool things, like access the internet for apps like Pandora, or control the car via a phone app. Onboard navigation and a parking camera suite was also an option on high trim cars, but not all the cars had these extra features, so it's worth checking out if you're shopping for a 2015 and a half or later. Adding a reverse camera to a car without it is involved, so if you need a reverse camera, make sure you get a car that already has it installed. One simple way to tell a 2015 and 2015 and a half model year apart is by the rear view mirror. 2015 and a half will have a frameless glass design. Many later models with the 4-cylinder and the 6-cylinder engine came with electro-hydraulic steering. This removes the power steering pump from the belt system and replaces it with an electric pump. Since you are still directly connected to the power steering rack, you won't feel any difference between it and the conventional system, and the steering feel on these cars is actually fantastic. P2 owners will be happy to know that across the entire model range, the P3 chassis cars had a very standard turning radius in contrast to the cruise ship style steering of, say, a P2 V70R. Additionally, if you have an electrical steering system, some models take advantage of that with an automatic parking ability, where the car takes control of the power steering and parallel parks the car for you. On some packages, the steering wheel is even heated for those cold Scandinavian mornings and nights. One cool feature on some of the better option P3s is adaptive cruise control, which will automatically maintain distance to the car in front of you, so you don't have to keep messing with the cruise control in standard traffic. You can tell if the car you are looking at is equipped with this by looking at the grille. Next to the Volvo logo on the front, you'll see a large sensor array, which is the radar suite for the adaptive cruise control. The same goes with the city safety crash detection system, which consists of a pair of sensors above the rear view mirror. Interestingly enough, whenever you change your windshield, these sensors must be calibrated. Some cars have a very nice Harman and Kardon speaker system. Those models can be easily identified by the third grille in the center of the dash. It is not easy to upgrade the standard system, so if you're looking for killer sound, keep an eye out for the third dash speaker with the Harman Kardon logo. In the late 2010s, a lot of P3 cars had auto start-stop, which can be fairly annoying. Those cars will have both an extra auxiliary battery that can be problematic, as well as a button on the dash that will allow you to disable it for exactly one driving cycle. Eventually, you'll get in the habit of turning it off when you first get in the car. While uncommon, there are P3s with 4C suspension. These are like the P2 4C system, which uses a ferrofluid oil to electronically adjust the sportiness or comfort level depending on your mood. 4C cars will have an extra set of buttons on the center console, so if you're scrolling through images online, check out that waterfall dash to know if the car has 4C if the listing doesn't specifically point it out. Unlike the P2s, P3s have great xenon headlights. If you can stretch your vehicle equipped with xenons, we highly recommend it. Like we mentioned before, the halogen lights can be improved with better bulbs, but in general are not very good compared to Volvo xenons. They even offer active bending, which lights up corners as you drive around them, which is very cool, and fortunately from what we can tell, fairly reliable as well. The seats on P3s are really nice, with sport options being some of the best in the business. You can tell if your car has sport seats based on the bolstering, as interior options weren't specifically tied to certain packages all the time. The same goes with the sport chassis cars that aren't specifically trimmed out with R-design packages. The sport chassis is lower and stiffer, so keep in mind that sport chassis cars with the 19-inch run flats will feel pretty stiff, especially over bad roads. On a plus side, you do get paddle shifters. Finally, there are a number of different brake sizes across the board on P3 cars. If you are used to driving more performance-oriented vehicles, you may be disappointed with the smallest brake size. Vehicles with the 300mm brakes will feel pretty lackluster, but luckily, they are easy to upgrade. We have another video exactly about doing that. Well, that about wraps up the Volvo P3 chassis. We hope you learned something. I sure did. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the A50 project.